we've had tremendous success, and I've done more for NATO than anybody else. I don't think you'd have NATO right now. I got them to go 5% and pay as opposed to 2% and not pay. I've done more than any other American president for NATO by far. And we'll see how that goes, but Greenland is very important.
Something catastrophic just happened that should result in Donald Trump's immediate removal from office. And I need you to understand how serious this situation actually is, because what unfolded in the last 24 hours represents the single most dangerous moment of Trump's entire presidency. We are watching a sitting president suffer a complete psychological collapse in real time while simultaneously compromising national security through his own reckless behavior. This isn't political theater anymore. This is a genuine constitutional crisis. Donald Trump just spent the overnight hours posting sensitive strategic information about potential military operations. He leaked diplomatic communications. He shared fabricated imagery depicting American territorial conquest. And he did all of this because he's having an emotional meltdown over not receiving an award. Let me repeat that because it sounds too absurd to be real. The President of the United States is threatening war because someone didn't give him a prize he wanted. The 25th Amendment exists for exactly this scenario. When a president becomes mentally incapable of executing the duties of office, when their judgment deteriorates to the point of actively endangering American interests, removal becomes necessary. We've reached that threshold. What happened overnight proves it beyond any reasonable doubt. Here's how this disaster actually unfolded. Trump appeared at a public event where journalists naturally asked him about his recent fixation on acquiring Greenland. Now, any rational leader would either deflect the question or provide some measured response about strategic partnerships. Trump instead went on an unhinged rant that sounded like a rejected script from a bad mafia movie. He started threatening long-standing American allies, countries that have stood beside us through every major conflict, nations whose cooperation we depend on for everything from intelligence sharing to military operations. Trump looked directly into cameras and essentially told Denmark and Norway to hand over territory or face consequences. The audacity is staggering. He's out here claiming that historical presence doesn't establish sovereignty, which is particularly rich coming from someone whose entire political philosophy seems rooted in 1800s imperialism. Trump literally argued that just because people settled somewhere centuries ago doesn't give them legitimate claim to that land. The irony apparently escaped him completely, given that this exact logic would invalidate America's own territorial foundations. But consistency has never been Trump's strength. What made his statements even more deranged was the contradiction embedded within them. Trump insists we need Greenland as protection against Russian aggression. That's his entire justification for this imperial fantasy. Greenland serves as a strategic buffer against Putin's ambitions in the Arctic region. Fine. Except Trump then pivots and starts praising Vladimir Putin like they're old fishing buddies. He talks about inviting Russia into peace negotiations. He calls Putin a tremendous leader. So which is it, Donald? Is Russia the existential threat requiring us to seize allied territory? Or is Putin your personal hero who deserves a seat at diplomatic tables? You can't have it both ways, though Trump certainly tries. But the press conference lunacy was just the appetizer. What came afterward represents something far more sinister and frankly terrifying. Because Trump then went home and apparently decided sleep was for people who aren't actively trying to start international incidents. Instead, he began what can only be described as a manic posting spree that continued until dawn. First came the announcement about his phone call with NATO's Secretary General. Trump wrote out this bizarre, formal statement treating a routine diplomatic conversation like some historic accord. He declared that Greenland is absolutely essential for global security, and there can be no retreating from that position. The phrasing alone should alarm anyone paying attention. There can be no going back sounds less like policy discussion and more like a hostage situation. This is a man drawing red lines that nobody asked for, and that serve no American interest whatsoever. Then Trump started sharing images, not official government communications, not vetted strategic materials, just random AI-generated propaganda showing himself alongside his subordinates, planting American flags on Greenland soil. The images literally say, Greenland, U.S. territory established 2026. Like this is already a done deal. Like sovereignty of an entire nation can just be declared through social media posts at 2 in the morning. The delusion is breathtaking, but it gets worse. Because Trump didn't stop with Greenland, he then posted what appeared to be a map showing American domination across the Western Hemisphere. Venezuela marked as U.S.-controlled, Cuba under American authority, Greenland annexed. It's like someone gave a 5-year-old a risk board and told him to draw his dream scenario. Except this isn't a child playing games. This is the President of the United States publicly announcing imperial ambitions while European leaders watch in horror. And then came the most reckless act of all. Trump decided to leak his private communications with NATO's Secretary General. He posted the entire exchange where this official is clearly trying to manage Trump's ego while preventing a full alliance meltdown. The Secretary General wrote these carefully worded statements praising Trump's supposed accomplishments in Syria and Gaza, obviously attempting to keep Trump calm and engaged with alliance priorities. Any functioning adult would recognize this as diplomatic courtesy. Trump saw it as vindication and immediately shared it with the world like a teenager posting compliments from their crush. Do you understand what just happened there? Trump leaked sensitive communications between himself and one of America's most critical security partners. He exposed the NATO Secretary General's private messaging strategy. He potentially compromised that relationship and made future confidential discussions impossible, all because he wanted to show off that someone said nice things about him. The national security implications are staggering. European leaders are watching this and making calculations right now. They're wondering if they can trust America with sensitive information when the president might post it on social media during his next tantrum. They're questioning whether alliances built over 70 years can survive a leader this volatile and unpredictable. And honestly, those are fair questions to ask. What's driving all of this? Why is Trump spiraling so completely and so publicly? The answer is simultaneously simple and pathetic. He wanted recognition. Specifically, he wanted the Nobel Peace Prize. Some supporter apparently nominated him and Trump latched onto this idea like a desperate man clutching driftwood. He convinced himself he deserved this award, that his supposed diplomatic achievements warranted international acclaim. Except the Nobel Committee didn't agree. They didn't give Trump his prize. And rather than accepting this with even a shred of dignity, Trump is now having a complete breakdown. When asked directly about the Peace Prize, he gave this absurd response claiming he doesn't even care about it while simultaneously making clear he cares tremendously. He went on this tangent about Norway controlling the awards and how he saved tens of millions of lives and deserves recognition for achievements nobody can actually verify. It was the verbal equivalent of, I have a girlfriend, but she lives in Canada and you wouldn't know her. Except now Canada is apparently America's 51st state according to Trump's increasingly deranged worldview. So because Trump didn't get his trophy, because his ego wasn't sufficiently stroked by European institutions, he's now threatening to invade allied nations and reshape the entire Western political order. That's where we are. A 78-year-old man with access to nuclear codes is having a temper tantrum because he didn't win an award. And rather than Republicans stepping in to contain this disaster, they're either silent or actively enabling his delusions. Some Republican lawmakers made vague statements weeks ago about how Trump pursuing Greenland militarily would be unacceptable. They drew these supposed red lines about what behavior they wouldn't tolerate. Well, congratulations, we've now crossed every single one of those lines. Trump has posted imagery depicting American military conquest. He's leaked strategic communications. He's threatened allied nations publicly and repeatedly. The goalpost has been reached. So where are these principled Republicans now? Where's their outrage? Where's their commitment to constitutional governance? The silence is deafening. And it's not just disappointing, it's dangerous. Because Trump interprets silence as permission. Every day that goes by without serious consequences teaches him that he can escalate further, that there are no actual boundaries on his behavior, that he can threaten wars, leak intelligence, compromise alliances, and face zero accountability from his own party. This is why the 25th Amendment must be invoked immediately. Trump is demonstrating clear inability to execute his duties responsibly. He's making decisions based on personal grievances rather than national interests. He's compromising American security to satisfy his ego. He's alienating crucial allies during a period of global instability. Any one of these things would be concerning. Together, they represent total unsuitability for office. Cabinet members took an oath to the Constitution, not to Donald Trump personally. That oath requires them to act when the president becomes incapable of fulfilling his responsibilities. We've reached that point. Hoping Trump spontaneously develops judgment and restraint is not a strategy. Waiting for him to commit an even worse offense before acting is negligence. The warning signs are flashing bright red. The crisis is happening now. And let's be clear about what comes next if nothing changes. Trump will continue escalating. He'll make more threats. He'll potentially take military action based on these delusions. He'll further damage America's standing with allies while emboldening our adversaries. This pattern doesn't reverse itself. Unchecked behavior accelerates. We're past the point of hoping for better. We're past the point of giving Trump another chance to demonstrate basic competence. The man is posting war plans at 3 in the morning because he's upset about not winning a popularity contest. That's not presidential behavior. That's not even adult behavior. It's the action of someone fundamentally unfit for the office they hold. Republicans need to make a choice. They can continue pretending this is normal and acceptable, in which case they own every disaster that follows. Or they can put country over party for once and support removal. There's no middle ground anymore. Trump has eliminated any possibility of moderating or containing his worst impulses. He's showing us exactly who he is, and we need to believe him. The 25th Amendment exists for moments exactly like this one, when the president's mental state deteriorates to the point of endangering national security. Removal isn't just an option, it's an obligation. Constitutional mechanisms were designed specifically to handle leaders who become unfit during their term. We're living through the textbook scenario those mechanisms were meant to address. This isn't about politics anymore. This isn't about policy disagreements or partisan positioning. This is about preventing a mentally unstable individual from causing irreparable harm to American interests and potentially triggering international conflicts through sheer recklessness. The situation is that serious. The stakes are that high. Donald Trump just leaked sensitive communications, threatened allied nations, and posted fabricated imagery depicting territorial conquest. All because he didn't receive an award he wanted. If that doesn't meet the threshold for removal under the 25th Amendment, then the threshold doesn't exist. We either enforce constitutional safeguards now, or we admit they're meaningless decorations that crumble the moment they're actually needed. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel because this story isn't over. Trump will keep posting. The crisis will keep developing, and we'll be here covering every development as Washington decides whether constitutional governance still matters. Drop your thoughts below. And remember, silence enables autocracy. Speaking up matters now more than ever.